Imagine a world where every threat, ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits, is stopped before it can even begin. ThreatLocker makes that world a reality with a zero-trust approach to cybersecurity. By giving you granular control and every executable in your environment, ThreatLocker protects your business around the clock. No more guessing, no more gaps. Just rock-solid protection that keeps your operations running smoothly and your data secure. Discover how ThreatLocker's least privilege approach can safeguard your organization against known and unknown threats. Take the first step towards total peace of mind by visiting securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker today. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Marina Segal joins us today to talk about the current state of cloud security. Marina is an entrepreneur and product leader in the cloud protection space with over 17 years of experience in cybersecurity, MSSP, risk management, compliance, and governance, and is currently the CEO and co-founder of Tamnoon. Marina is also a board member of the Cloud Security Alliance Seattle chapter and the founder of the WOSEC chapter meetup in the Bay Area. Welcome to the show, Marina.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it's thanks for being here. It's I don't think we've really had a good conversation on cloud security in a while, and it's a big space. There's a lot going on there. We see and hear some of the biggest companies are very focused on cloud security at this point. Wiz famously turned down a $23 billion offer from Google, so became the biggest pure play security company out there. So that says a lot about the space. Maybe let's start out with how you fit into the space too, because I kind of misunderstood when I first started talking with you about that Wiz is not a competitor. Wiz would actually be a partner for you, correct?
Correct. So we are a unique player in the space in a sense that we are not yet another product. We are managed service. And what we do, we actually help companies to take control over their cloud exposures by providing them a very tailored and focused managed service for their cloud infrastructure.
Got you. Yeah. So almost like it's not just vulnerabilities, obviously, but like a managed vulnerability program, right? Like helping prioritize. Here's the things that you should focus on because these tools bury teams and information, right?
In the end of the day, our biggest challenge in the industry is not lack of technology. We've been building tools for so long, and we have amazing amount of abilities and capabilities and features and products that can help us to do pretty much everything. We can gain visibility. We can detect anything in the cloud. And it's not only vulnerabilities. There are so many things that can go wrong in the cloud security space. We have tools that help us with automation, with prioritization, and it's on us to leverage them. And exposure reduction supposed to be pretty well managed. However, we still have this weak link of people process in the game. And that's why we are unable still to reduce the exposure to the level where we feel safe as an industry. And that's why the managed service, we actually scaling that part that is so missing in the industry, which is expertise and people that know how to deal with cloud security tools that are have the expertise and the know-how around how to fix anything in cloud infrastructure.
Yeah. And this makes me really happy because I've been writing for a couple months about how people shouldn't be managing their own security and infrastructure, and how even some of the largest companies in the world don't have the capability to really support. And I actually would like to get your take on this. Part of my philosophy on why cloud security is so hard is because cloud computing is so easy to use. So it's so easy to spin up an EC2. We've almost made it too easy to create data in an insecure place and to have the expertise and kind of
and completely forget it and abandon it, right?
Yeah. My big question last year was like, where does all that AI data you generated go when your project dies? Because it's probably sitting in a bucket somewhere waiting to be scraped.
Yeah, and we solve one problem of democratizing and helping developers to move fast, right? All of the cloud providers, they've solved our problem. We no longer need to go
They're moving fast,
right? And we can move fast, so we cannot blame the organization or the enterprise for the slow procurement process anymore, because and now it's on us to help organizations to secure this whole thing, and it becomes extremely difficult because it's so dynamic. It's like a giant mass of moving targets that go up and down every second, pretty much. And security teams are being challenged in their need to be up to speed on all of the technologies, all of the tools, and everything that developers are doing. And it's just not a realistic ask from the security teams to get them to that level of sophistication. So basically what we need to build now is, all right, we figured the tool sets, we figured how to do that in theory. Now how to put it in practice? How do we put the teams that operate well together to help us secure our infrastructures can be done? And that's why focused managed services practice that brings the holistic solution that involves both the technology and the people as a one offering that knows how to deal with any issue in the cloud, is what we are building in order to solve this problem.
Yeah, I'm not always sure that enterprises fully understand how many pre-work goes into. So one of the things I noticed in the report that you had shared with us on kind of the state of cloud remediation is this whole notion that everything is a high alert. So even if you're trying to do the right thing, even if you're trying to use tools for cloud security, there's so much groundwork that goes into detection engineering to make sure that your alerts are classified properly, and then all of the manpower that goes into triaging them, that it almost seems like a lot of enterprises just grossly underestimate what a tool is, and not that, you have to lay the groundwork for the tool, you have to have people to run the tool, and then you have to invest in renewing those people's skills so you're not using a 8-year-old sim. But yeah, I want to get your perspective on how we kind of got here in terms of I know that's a loaded question, but just in terms of, where we're falling down that's causing some of these issues.
It's a hard question. I really don't think there is one reason how we got here, right? We, as an industry, and as human beings, we are typically focused on the most urgent things that we need to do, right? We are investing in our incident response processes a lot, because if there is an ongoing incident, it suddenly becomes the top issue to focus on as an organization. When we are talking about state of the cloud security or your protection, typically what happens is that, yes, we will detect all of the alerts, we will have the visibility, but how urgent is it for us to fix? And the answer, it depends. It depends on all of this triage and all of this heavy lifting that we need to do as security teams in order to understand what my real cloud exposure is. And it comes down to risk management. We really want to understand if the investment that we will make into fixing this risk is actually lower than the risk itself that we are fixing. And it's a hard problem to solve. So building a practice around that and repeating it in many different organizations and making this process repeatable and scalable, that's what I believe, and that's why I started a company around this. What can get us to the next level of maturity? We really want to understand what does millions of alerts mean to us in a very quick setup. But we also need to involve humans because every environment is different. Every bucket would have different price tag on it if we would put those price tags on all the buckets we have in our environments. And understanding this still requires human brains. It's not a deterministic problem that we can put some AI or some automation and let it solve it.
I think conceptual risk is something people really struggle with in terms of risk avoided, risk, the risk we didn't take. And it's interesting to think about how the same vulnerability presents different levels of risk at different organizations depending on how they're organized. So I just don't understand how any mid and small size organization feels like they can manage all of these dynamic values. What's your data worth? How much risk is in this particular place without the help of experts like yourself?
Right. Like the, I often talk about the, you almost have to customize some of this to your operations, to what's important to your company. Like if I'm a video game company and I've got servers that have to be running for players to be able to play the game, maybe I'm more concerned about some kind of denial of service, somebody taking down operations by encrypting some files or something like that than I am of maybe remote code execution on something. Maybe I'm prioritizing uptime and availability over confidentiality, because it directly impacts revenue. Whereas another company might be totally flipped. Yeah, sure, knock stuff down all day as long as we can recover within a week, we'll be fine. But we don't want that data taken. Like to use another extreme example, crypto company. Once crypto's stolen, there's no undo button, right? Like that's how the blockchain works. It's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, I wish that we were able to solve it with products only, and all of those questions, they're so valid for any conversation that we are involved in. In my opinion, any resolution of any alert should start with like, what is the most important thing for my company? What am I protecting? And typically, because we are so into like the day to day, the like, let's knock out another Jira ticket and solve that and this, we constantly forgetting about the essence of our job as a security professionals. We don't have to secure it all. We just have to make ourselves unattractive to attackers, right? And not necessarily means that we are gonna fix all the criticals.
Yeah. And it's, so it makes me wonder, like the inspiration for starting Tamnoon. I've not seen a lot of companies like this. It is fairly unique. But I spend a lot of my time analyzing why companies fail. And a lot of it does come back to process. I read through everything. I read through the interviews, through what happened, and they had the right tools and they had staff, right? But people didn't know how to use the tools, or the tools are misconfigured.
Who to talk to about what they're seeing, who cares about what it is.
Or they stop doing something. Like in some cases, they just stop maintaining the tools because they've got so many tools. There's so much overhead for each of the tools. Like they would have detected it right away had the tool been properly maintained, but it wasn't. Yeah, so is that some of the inspiration for, because you worked for Dome9 and Sysdig, I imagine, for a purely product company, there's only so much professional services and assistance you can throw at a customer and still make money, right?
I think the inspiration came from the fact that we've seen so many customers struggle to make the tools operational. And as a product company, you have the desire to build the best product, and then you leave, and then you come back to the same customer at the renewal, and you see that their risk level just went up, and it's not about your tool, right? Yeah. I actually spent so many years in the industry as a practitioner, and I've spent a lot of time in Deloitte as well. So I've seen how much you can do with just making small adjustments in the process in order to make the process work better. And then, any tool will be totally different. Small wins matter. Success stories matter. Creating the competitive spirit between different development teams, it matters much more than, yet another tool that you will bring as a security team. So I guess the inspiration came from many years of experience in the field and touching those technologies myself prior to becoming a product leader.
That makes me happy.
So that it actually makes me more curious about the service in the company, because it sounds like you do have a product like to help facilitate this service, right? Like you're doing some integrations there. How much of it is kind of white glove, hands on, educating customers? Where you have people actually talking to customers versus um, maybe cleaning up, prioritizing some of this data in some kind of a portal or a SaaS offering, right?
So our people,
does that make sense?
It does, definitely. So we call them cloud pros, but they're definitely the best team that is out there that knows cloud so well. And I'm so excited that we have the best experts in all of the cloud providers. Having this amazing kind of team, you want to scale them because that's the biggest asset of the industry that we have. And scaling them, that's what our product does. Our product is not for customers. While they have access to the portal, they have everything that they need to see our progress. A lot of the capabilities that we are building is to make our people superhumans. Think about, putting everything that they are doing on autopilot and training our models and building that autopilot that can drive on its own but still have them in a driver's seat. So almost like a full self-driving car with a driver in the driver's seat that can correct and adjust as needed.
Right.
So the white glove service is there. We are there with our customers in incidents. We are there with our customers on business reviews. We are there with them to help them to execute automations. They're getting a true white glove service. Whatever happens on the back end is pure automation and models that we've created, libraries of playbooks, a lot of enrichment and technology that helps them not to spend their time on the stuff that they hate. And also it keeps them motivated and not burned because they're really busy with the problems they enjoy solving. They're solving the architecture problems. They enjoy performing risk assessment and convincing developers to make the changes. This is something that no tool can do.
So closely relates to our last conversation about the difference between finding the problems and actually fixing them.
Yeah. We were talking about pen testing in the last interview. So one more question here, and it does kind of reach back into the last conversation that we had, because that pen testing also touches on vulnerability management and everything we're talking about here. And then I want to get to some of the report insights and findings, which are pretty interesting. But there, so many things you could fix, and so few of them seem to really have are really critical. Like if we're really going to consider things that a ransomware crew could leverage, or somebody could use to actually get into your environment, cause damage, cause bad things. Like that's just not moving from TLS 1.2 to 1.3, right? Like it's never, we never see the breach where, if only I'd moved to TLS 1.3 more quickly. We do you, because some people still have to fix that stuff because compliance and regulations and things like that. But do you ever find yourself like, is the answer ever, what, you can safely ignore that? We're just not going to touch it. We're not going to fix it. Do you ever get to say that to a customer?
Not only we say that to our customers, we also document the risk acceptance documents for them and make sure that their auditors are happy with the documentation.
Right.
A lot of times what we find is that, okay, you have those 3,000 volumes that are unencrypted. And you know what? 1,000 of them, they're in your test environment. This environment is not connected to anything. You can ignore them. And by the way, then another 500, they're unused. Let's kill them and save you some cost. And by the way, those 5 are actually production touching something super sensitive. We're going to start with them. We're going to do it in maintenance windows. Here is how we're going to do it without breaking anything. And this is the plan that we provide them that is backed by automation that will execute it for them. But the whole logic of how we are thinking about the phases of the remediation and how to make it an effort that fixes a lot of risk with one automation instead of going one by one over 3,000 volumes, which is not realistic and no one's going to ever do it. And if you're going to put someone to do it, probably next day he will leave. And those problems are part of what we believe that needs to be done in the industry. And while we all blame security vendors for bringing us solutions that do not work, it's rarely only the product problem that we are trying to solve.
Products scale up and down pretty easily, but security teams don't. And I think that's, when you're talking about prioritizing remediation and killing services and things like that, a lot of companies who don't use a partner like you do the pen test, get the results, but then how are you going to dedicate somebody full time for the next 3 months to doing that discovery, figuring out how to prioritize things? And I think it's really hard to understate how much companies underestimate the people power that has to go behind the tools, as you were just saying, to make these things work and to actually fix the problems and not burn people out because now you want them to do this in addition to triaging alerts for 8 hours a day.
Exactly. And it's funny that you're talking about pen testing because a lot of our customers who just perform a pen test, scratching their heads that they have customer requirements and regulatory requirements to fix it within 90 days, especially the criticals. A lot of times we find ourselves prioritizing different alerts from what we were supposed to prioritize because of those pen test reports. And a lot of work that we are doing is to actually help with those spikes in remediation activities due to regulatory and pen test activities or even priorities of the CISO because they decided to focus on something because they've heard of their peers in the same industry who went through some event that now forces others in the same industry to do something around similar type of attack.
So let's jump into this. I love this report. I didn't have to fill out a form to look at this report. It's not a PDF. It's just on the webpage. I love the layout of it. And you've got a few takeaways here. And this first one I think is really interesting, that different CNAPs classify the same misconfigurations differently. And you have some examples here where like maybe it's a high for one or informational for another. Now, is this disparity, is this like between different CNAPs or even within the same CNAP? Do you see the, give the same thing or what is essentially the same thing, 2 different severity ratings?
It's typically between different CNAPs because within the same CNAP, we've seen not a lot of discrepancies. And in the end of the day, and one of my roles in Dom9 was to actually write those rules and categorize them. I had a team of people and we were doing that day in and day out. All of those rules that were written are pretty it's a pretty time consuming process. And it's in the end of the day, you have researchers and it's pretty subjective, right? It's not a rocket science. And even how to name the misconfiguration and what do you write in the title, it's a whole interesting topic to cover. But yeah, it varies between different CNAPs and it can vary for your specific environment. As you said, Adrian, for gaming companies, something that would, allow attacker to take down the server may be crucial. For others, they care most about the data of their patients. So it really can vary between customer and customer. However, each CNAP provides out of the box severity that you typically cannot customize unless you're copying the rule and then managing your own duplication of the same rule for your environment. And then it becomes, oh my God, who's going to manage that? We're just going to go with the best practices. And then how are we going to convince our auditors that what we've done and change the defaults, it making sense? So typically what we are seeing is that most customers, they would not customize, that they would just stick to whatever CNAP provides. And what we've seen is that everybody just paying attention to criticals. And that's how we end up with a very not representative risk scoring in our systems.
Right. And we see that almost everywhere. It's, because everything is critical and there's never enough time to remediate all the criticals, high, medium, low informational, it all might as well be informational. Yeah, we never get to there. Yeah, we never
you just
get that far.
Fatigue, right? It's just like if you watch the news too much. According to the news, everything is the end of the world. So eventually you're just like, all right, whatever. It's all burning down. It's fine. Yeah, alert fatigue is, I think, one of the most common reasons that good analysts miss things is just, if you're just clicking rapid dismiss on stuff, it's really easy to miss one thing that has a slightly different detail that makes it more important.
Yeah, I'm looking at my and then trying to find that email from the teacher that is important. It's impossible, right?
Yeah. Like outbound traffic to malicious IP addresses ranges from medium to high, but not critical. That would not be critical.
Exactly.
Why?
Because maybe in some cases, that malicious IP address was not really malicious. Maybe it was too low. But what happens in
the threat intel is out of date or something.
Exactly.
The ephemeral nature.
But being on the other side of the product companies and seeing how we were writing those rules in the beginning, we were competing over how many rules I have versus my competitor. So we wanted to have more rules, policies, right? That was the beginning of the CSPM CNAP era.
Yeah.
Now
same thing happened with Rapid7, Tenable, all the vulnerability scanners, right?
Exactly. And now we are about, okay, so let's make the prioritization work better. So the first thing that the CNAP providers were doing is, okay, let's make our criticals to be really less than 2%. So now they shut down some of those severities and adjusted them. But really what we need to
that can't be critical. We're already above our quota.
Right? So the problem is real. And I think part of the maturity of the industry is, all right, we need to roll out this tool. The first thing we need to do is to review those policies, detection rules, and make sure that they make sense to our environment and not to just generic cloud that everybody use.
Yeah, I call that the customization tax. It's the what you pay, in labor, right? Because the product vendor can only make it work for every single customer they might have so well, and then the customer has to take it and make it work how they need it to work for them, right? So you've got that tax, that extra cost of modifying this tool, customizing things. So that what's critical to you is actually what's showing as critical in the tool, right?
And it's not a one-off effort, right? You need to do it every so often because they also change things in their tools and add features.
I feel like there should be almost like a nutrition label, but when you walk into a booth at a conference and they show you a demo of their alerts, you should have to have like a disclosure of how many hours went into engineering those detections. Because they just show you the beautiful dashboard where everything works and it's all color coded. And it's like, it does not come out of the box like that. Comes out of the box a universal remote, basically, and you got to find your codes. Does that make me sound really? Oh my God! I just realized how old that makes me sound.
We're going to ignore that part.
We edit that out.
That would be professional severity.
So we've run out of time. We only made it to one takeaway, but I think that's fine. People can go read the report. The results are great here. I love the examples that you chose. The quotes that you got for this report are excellent. I love the quotes in here. You've got quotes from folks like Mike Prevet, James Birdie. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
James Birdie. I'm not going to spoil any of it. We do have the link in the show notes, and you should go check out the rest of the report. It is not a super long read either. It's a pretty comfortable, quick read with a lot of visuals. And
I was going to commend the layout and graphic design for neurodiverse people like me.
Sure.
I really feel like you did a fantastic job making the information accessible in a couple different. And I'm sorry, not just me. I know autistic people tend to tell other people they're autistic, but yes, having multiple different ways to absorb the information. Huge kudos to whoever the designer was, because that's something I am a stickler for.
Thank you, guys. I will pass that over to the team. It's a lot of hard work that combined engineering, marketing, services team. It was a really fun project to be part of. And I definitely love the result. And I'm sure that it will bring more insightful conversations to our industry. And my goal is to make sure that we can reduce a little bit more of cloud exposures every day. It's a lot of small drops that matter, that turn it into a big effort that we can solve all together.
It's great work. It's work that needs to be done. And thank you so much for coming on the show, Marina.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, JK. It was amazing to be part of it. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, and so stick around. We'll be back in just a few moments with the weekly enterprise news.